Good morning, gentlemen. It's a wonderful time, and I'm going to talk to you today about Ukraine. I have made so many videos in Ukraine and I made some forecasts, and one of those was that the end result could be a nuclear war. Well, gentlemen, let us see what is the latest position at the moment. As things stand, and the battlefield, that is where the ground battle is going on, it's almost like a war of attrition, a stalemate. But there are only signs all around that the Western world, that is in particular the Anglo-Saxon powers and the East Europeans, and all of them form part of NATO, are getting tired. The Russians have made a statement now that the war would soon be over because the West is getting tired of supporting Ukraine because Ukraine is not able to win the war. Now, Zelensky had made a visit recently to Washington, and then he went to Canada also, and where the Americans agreed to give the Abraham tanks to Ukraine. Now, that's very well. Abraham tanks are good tanks, but then they need trained crew to operate them. And I don't think at the moment, despite whatever training the Americans will give to the Ukrainian soldiers, they will be adept at handling such a sophisticated weapon. You will recollect that in the 1965 war, the Americans had given the pattern tanks to Pakistan, the M1, and these had infrared night vision devices. And Pakistan launched a massive thrust in the Chump sector. But it came a cropper because the Pakistani crew were not conversant with the use of the pattern tanks, and with the result, the pattern tanks found a graveyard in the battle with the Indian Army. So just getting the Abraham tanks is not going to change the texture of the war in Ukraine. And despite Zelensky moving around, and trying to show that he's a tiger, which he's not, he's actually a sheep in a tiger's clothing, the war is not going to be won by him. And there are only signs that the Western world and NATO is getting tired of spending billions of dollars. In fact, the entire calculation of the Americans have gone wrong. They had thought the war wouldn't last much longer because they had emasculated Russia with economic sanctions. But then there are two sides to a coin, and these economic sanctions could not take effect 100% because many of the Western powers, like Germany and France, they don't have any natural resources and they need gas and oil. And where the hell are they going to get it from? And they went about in a surreptitious manner to buying it from Russia by intermediary nations. So the sanctions didn't really work. They took Russia out of the SWIFT banking system. It didn't work. They didn't realize that Russia is very, very self-reliant. And though the Russian economy has suffered, they are nowhere close to collapse. And it is now the Western powers which are feeling the brunt. Poland, which is supplying a lot of weapons, in fact, they have supplied almost $3 billion worth of weapons to Ukraine, has said it's not going to supply any more weapons to Ukraine. They can't afford it. Germany is in a recession, and how long are they going to keep on supporting? They gave one set of Leopard tanks to Germany, to Ukraine, but they've all been destroyed, I think, by now, or they're burning in the battlefield. And the Germans also have quite. And France has got so many problems, It's no longer the great power it used to be at one time. And they are beating their retreat from Central Africa. They've had to get a bloody nose there. And the question of going whole hog to Ukraine doesn't appear to be a very palatable idea to them. So NATO is developing what is called war weariness. The Russians, on the other hand, have intensified the conflict, and daily missiles and rockets are raining on the Ukrainian cities. Recently they hit the grain depots also, and that is something that's going to harm Ukraine a lot. Gentlemen, the situation is pretty grim as far as Ukraine is concerned, because it is able to sustain this campaign only with the help of the United States. Basically, the USA is the biggest donor, and Biden had staked his reputation on supporting Ukraine and winning the war. He had thought at least he would cover up the ignoble retreat from Afghanistan with a semblance of a victory in Ukraine and then win the 2024 election. But it's not working out that way, and the American public is getting arrested, because who's funding the war with taxes and other things? It's the American public. And Donald Trump now, despite all the charges being framed against him, remains a formidable challenger to Joe Biden, and he knows it. I have no doubt that Trump will win the Republican nomination, and he may very well win in 2024, and that will be the time when we'll see, in case he wins, a different wind blowing. Vladimir Putin has miscalculated, I'll say, and what he's doing now, he should have done a year and a half back, and the war would have been over within 2 months. But he took the entire operation in Ukraine as a limited military operation and did not pull in the full force. He thought the Ukrainian government will collapse like a pack of cards. Probably they would have if the Americans had not beefed up. Now England, the United Kingdom, is another factor in this entire thing. They are a very small nation. They don't have much of a power, and there's no global reach. But at the same time, they want to play big games, and the aim is to try and defeat Russia. And they have now said that they'll be giving training to the Ukrainian crews. They are giving them training, but now the Russians have made it very clear that wherever the British soldiers and advisors are located in Ukraine and training, the Ukrainian armed forces will be prime targets. So it's possible that the UK may lose some of their soldiers for nothing. So gentlemen, what is the way forward? The way forward is only one, that NATO has to throw in the towel. Now it looks very important, not likely that this is going to happen, because Joe Biden has been repeatedly making statements that he is going to support the Ukraine for as long as it gets. Well, gentlemen, easy to talk, as I said, but on the ground, the Americans have burnt their boats very badly, and they must be wondering what is to be done. The counteroffensive launched by Ukraine has failed. Americans had laid a lot of stress on that at least they would move 20, 30, 50 miles inside Russia, drive the Russian forces out of Ukraine and the Crimea, but it hasn't happened that way. On the contrary, the Ukrainian army has suffered so many casualties that they're short of manpower, men, and they're utilizing their women now to fight the Russians. Wonderful. This is, I think, the equality of the sexes. But throughout history, you have seen women fighters have not won very many wars. I don't think they've won any war at all. And Russians will be very happy to face the Ukrainian girls and women. But then it's a very dangerous sign. Zelensky, I think, is a megalomaniac. 20% of the Ukrainian population is a refugee in Europe, floating around from Poland, Czechoslovakia, Hungary, all over. And economy destroyed, ravaged, and despite the billions which are going to be poured in by the West, I don't think Ukraine is going to be able to rise up to the next quarter of a century at the minimum, or maybe half a century. So what did Zelensky gain by making all that hue and cry and showing his application that for a fast track entry to the EU and NATO? Nothing. And what has the Americans gained? They've spent billions of dollars in Ukraine. They have not been able to defeat the Russians. Now, this is, in a way, if you look at it from one angle, and another American defeat. They've not been able to expel the Russians from Ukrainian territory. Ukrainians are suffering heavy casualties. They have brought the women in for recruitment, and there is no sign that Ukraine will be ever able to drive out the Russian forces from the Donbas region and the Crimea. So you can see that the results are poor, but there is every chance, and I have some information that there is a morale problem in the Ukrainian army. Despite all talk of bravado of the Abraham tanks coming and the F-16s coming, everything is easier said than done. You need the man, the fighter, to use these sophisticated machines. And though Ukrainians are great fighters, I mean, I would say they fought very well against the Germans, and many of them went and collaborated with the Nazis. It's a known fact. Ukraine is nowhere a great power, and there is every chance that Ukraine will be overrun. What will happen if there is a complete collapse of the morale of the Ukrainian army? What's going to happen? And at that time, I think America is going to suffer another massive defeat. Gentlemen, the situation in Ukraine is now in favor of the Russians as far as the strategic concepts are concerned. But on the tactical field, they are not able to make much headway, and that is a cause for concern. The Russian army, somehow it's not the same army which was fighting the Wehrmacht during World War II. They are the same thing, entirely a different force, a conscripted force, and where some of the soldiers have been just brought in to fight there as fodder. So the net result is results which are not commensurate with the effort. Russia has a great superiority in electronic warfare and in sophisticated rocketry and drones. But Ukraine has also been given some missiles and they're now hitting back. I think they even hit Moscow, though they didn't create much of damage. Zelensky had recently to remove his defense minister and a lot of other ministers because, he must be wondering what's happening. But by removing these men, he's not going to win the war. And he's still thinking that we will be able to drive the Russians out. But I think there's realization dawning in Western Europe in particular, though the Anglo-Saxon part and the British, Canada, and the United States are not yet seen the horizon properly. The other countries like France, Germany, and East European countries have realized they can't win the war, and if it continues, it's going to affect the economy. Europe has lots of other problems, and I wonder how foolish these people can be when they are facing an Islamic invasion and manpower and refugees from North Africa and the Middle East. That could very well change the demographic composition of Europe and also erode what we call the bastion of Christianity, the Catholic faith. So I think Ukraine is a needless worry, And this war need never have taken place if the Americans had not become ambitious and thought that they would break Russia into another 2 or 3 countries so that they could perpetuate the hegemony for the next 100 years. It's not going to happen like that. Because you know that old English saying, if wishes were horses, beggars will ride. It doesn't happen that way. So, gentlemen, the war is on, but now I think the West is getting war weary, and there is a good chance that Ukraine in another few months could throw in the towel. And in case there is escalation, now there's a dangerous thing. The Americans must realize that you're playing with fire. I remember there was a Hindi movie called Waqt, in which one of the protagonists, the top heroes, Rajkumar, makes a statement, जिनॉय सेठ जो लोग शीशे के घरों में रहते हैं वो पत्थर नहीं फेंकते. It means that those people who stay in glass houses do not throw stones at others. America must remember that it's a glass house. It's been throwing stones all over. And tomorrow the matches list is lit. The glass house could blow up. Gentlemen, I hope peace will prevail. I am a man of peace, so I've spent time in the armed forces. And I'd like to introduce you, I've told you about myself. I'm senior group captain from the Indian Air Force. I'm a graduate of the Staff College, written 4 books on military history. I also write a lot of books, written 20 books. In addition, as far as the service is concerned, I commanded 3 Air Force units, took part in various operations before taking early retirement, and now I'm a corporate advisor. I think this is just an idea that I'm a global traveler who's traveled all over the world. And I get a feedback even now about what all is happening. Gentlemen, I hope you like this video. Please share it with your friends. I would be so happy if you could give some comments as well and like the video. At the same time, I will wish you all best of luck. Jai Hind, glory to India. Do take care and come back to listen to me again. Bye-bye.